Hello, everyone. I really appreciate the sense of humor um, displayed by BBC's Russia editor, still with Steve Rosenberg today, because in his article about what Putin might do next, he did say that, a lot of people are wondering this, and a lot of people expect him to have that answer since he is the Russia editor of BBC. But he admits to not having that answer. And I think the reason is not just because who the hell knows, but also because all of the rhetoric Putin has been using in the couple of days since President Biden told Ukraine, go the hell ahead, use long range weapons against Russia. The rhetoric has been the same that he's been using for months now. Let's go down the list. He threatened more drastic strikes against Ukraine. He's done this in the past, and he continued murdering Ukrainian civilians. Nothing new there. He said that he's going to revise his nuclear doctrine. Done it several times. He said that any military target that is located on NATO territory among Ukraine's allies is now a legitimate target for Russia to hit. He said that before. He's been saying that for like anywhere between 6 months to a year. I honestly lost track. So, this is nothing new. What I suggest is basically calling him out on it. Somebody said, I think it was somebody more like in the humor and satire department, that Putin will think twice before starting nuclear war because he's selfish. And a direct nuclear hit would melt all of the silicone he's got implanted in his face. While, again, this was a joke, at the core of it, there is definitely some truth. Putin is selfish. He knows, everybody knows where all his palaces are. He himself is hard to catch. He might have some bomb-proof underground bunker, but where would he go if all of his other locations were destroyed in retaliation? So, for all of his posturing, all of his warmongering, all of that, I think he's bluffing. And the reason I think that is because, again, he has been doing this since forever. So we already know that he had his military fire a ballistic missile at Ukraine. Now, considering the nature of this missile, there is some question as to how many of those do they have on the Russian side. We know that these missiles have not been used in combat before. And so a lot of the war experts are asking, is it likely that Russia is going to just use up their supply and hope the intimidation works? So far, none of the means of intimidation Russia attempted to use against Ukraine had worked. And you all know, especially if you follow this channel, Russia's done some pretty horrible things in Ukraine. From some tremendous attacks, destruction of entire cities, murder of children, to psychological warfare. So, there is some question as to whether maybe Russia may have hardened their own enemy to a point where people of Ukraine is just, oh yeah, bring it. Now, here's something else. Putin said that the war in Ukraine is now global. And again, where has he been the last, I want to say, 11 years? Because remember, we are counting kind of the preface to this war from right about now in 2013. So, 11 years. This was when Ukraine attempted to strengthen its trade agreements with Europe, and Putin interfered. Ukraine's then President Yanukovych, who was very pro-Russia, pulled out of the agreement, and Ukrainians decided they've had enough. And so all of that led eventually to the Orange Revolution, Maidan, annexation of Crimea, and so on and so forth. So this war has been global for quite some time. And a lot of people have already talked, a lot of economics experts, politics experts have talked about global impacts of this war many, many times. So I don't know what he's trying to say when he says that, it's just gone global. It has been global. Now, at this time, I know that Biden administration is working feverishly to give Ukraine all of the supplies they can possibly provide. The ambitious goal of this is to keep Ukraine stocked for at least a year. The challenge there has been the intensity of fighting Ukraine is having to do. And that's another thing that has been covered. Institute for the Study of War, Department of State, war historians have been talking about the sheer amount of supplies Ukraine is using because of what Russia is dishing out. So the big question now becomes, if Ukraine is provided with whatever supplies they can get in this short period of time before Trump is inaugurated, what can they do with utmost effectiveness? Well, here's what we know. The area marked with the red line, not with the red color, with the red line, shows you where Russian military air bases are. Okay? The red colored area is the portion of Ukraine currently occupied by Russia, including Crimea. So if you look at this, all of this is within the maximum range of Ukraine's attackers, 190 miles. So a lot can be done in this short period of time to eliminate as many Russian military objects within that range as possible. What does it mean for Ukraine in terms of the advantage, other than the obvious things? Remember what we said, that one of the biggest challenges is that Russia is using either the border regions, which Ukraine hasn't been able to target until now, or the invaded part to launch shorter range projectiles, drones, gliding bombs, shorter range missiles, etc. So if Ukrainians take out whatever they can in those areas, Russia is facing the question of distance. If you launch an airplane to eventually drop a guided bomb from outside that area, it's in the air longer, it needs more fuel, and there is more time to detect it on approach. And as we said before, it's a lot easier to take out an airplane before it starts dropping bombs than targeting bombs individually. So that area is going to become a focus, I think, of this war in the coming weeks. And as I mentioned before, considering how many unknowns there are, let's treat this as a developing story.